Welcome back to the 7th grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking on the topic of war by other means. And by war by other means, that is a metaphor or a way of saying that you are going into a country, you are attacking a ideology, you are attacking your opponent either psychologically, physically, socially, or economically. And we've seen in the past handful of years a number of ways that the United States has been attacked. But people are so used to in your face conventional warfare, they don't consider the fact that your enemy is attacking you using computers, or your enemy is attacking you in your infrastructure, be it your highway system or the power plants or nuclear power plants. These things are going on, and the sleepy public or the sheeple are so entranced with their phones that they're not paying attention to what's really going on. And so a good place to start this would be talking about how the American power grid is not designed to withstand an attack from an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse. Now, if you go back to the movie GoldenEye, the James Bond movie, that was the greatest, most blatant example of how an EMP blast knock airplanes out the air. You can turn off cars. You can turn off whole cities with electromagnetic pulse.
We learned about this shit in the 5th grade. One of the big things is that during a nuclear attack, the Russians had the plan was to explode a nuclear warhead like half a mile in the air or something like that. What that does is create an electromagnetic pulse. Computers and stuff, well, a lot of electronic equipment does not work with that electromagnetic pulse, and that's what he means by EMP. And we're just giving examples of unconventional. See, when you think of a nuclear warhead, you think, okay, hits the ground, kills a bunch of people. But when you explode it in the air, you have radiation, but you also have an inability to use your electronics. That's unconventional weapons. That's another way of doing things.
But here's a little pro tip. If you have a car that is older than the year 1986, it will still work after an EMP blast because it has an analog ignition in it.
Mm-hmm. It does not use computers. It doesn't have electronic fuel injection, that kind of stuff. Anything that uses that's why you like diesels. That's why you like the old. When you see these old guys drive these old Dodges, their old diesels, Volkswagen diesels, Mercedes diesels, things like that. There's no electronic fuel injection. There's no electronic ignition. Those things will run through water, everything. Now we get it. The whole doomsday prepper. You don't want to sound like a nut, but there's something to that. There's other ways of doing the EMP other than exploding a nuclear warhead. You can make an EMP. In fact, they taught us how to make it back in the day, just joking around before the internet. There was a thing circulating where you had this box where you could actually make an EMP. You push the button, and anything within like 15 feet of this box wouldn't work. And we were making stuff like that, joking, laughing, and stuff. So yeah, this EMP. But the point we're trying to make is other ways, like a few years back in Japan when they had all those protests, when they were doing dirty bombs and shit. They would blow up a bomb that had like stuff, had different shit in it. It wasn't, the idea of the bomb wasn't just blow up a subway. It was to infect the people with the disease. So yeah, unconventional warfare. We bring it up all the time. One of the things that's on my mind right now, I half-assed saw a documentary. I'm looking for it right now. But if you go on HBO, old boy's always on there. I can't think of his name. But he was talking about the 23andMe. And he was talking about all these different DNA tests that everybody thinks are so great. Do you know who owns most of those companies? China. So when you submit your DNA and they run the little tests, you're trying to find out who you're related to. You're trying to find out your background. They're actually studying your genome to see what you're immune to and what you're not immune to. They're seeing what you have in you. They're seeing who you are genetically. So suppose your DNA wasn't susceptible to COVID. They would know already because you submitted it and they ran some tests on it. Or suppose they're looking for the human genome and you're like, oh, this motherfucker right here. We had talked about this the other day. There's a genome that makes your bones stronger than that of a grizzly. And the way they found out, this dude had a severe car accident. There's no way he should be walking. and the dude just had bruises, and they couldn't figure out why. So they ran some tests on him, and he says, "Yeah, I had a similar incident back, years ago, something." And they were like, "What the hell?" So they ran some DNA tests. He has this K whatever genome, and it means he had his bones have the density of a grizzly bear. So they have these genomes mapped to where they have certain like super strength and invulnerability. Some of that stuff they already have, they already know about. So yeah, don't be so quick to jump out there and submit your DNA for testing and shit, because you don't know what they're going to do with it.
But see, also, once they have this database of information, they can use this for profit and for warfare.
Yes, and that's what we're talking, unconventional weapons. We're saying that you don't realize that you're being attacked in your home, or you don't realize, they might recognize you have an allergy to something simple and kill you like that. I'm allergic to peanut butter or peanuts or something. Next thing you know, you're on a plane, not realizing you're the Snickers, you're eating a candy bar that had peanuts in it. You didn't realize you're dead, but it wasn't on accident. It was a way to take you out because you were speaking out against something they didn't want you to speak out against. It's that simple. These are unconventional weapons. We always talk about the Soviets, and we had talked about them stabbing that dude in the back of the leg and killing him. Took like weeks for him to die. So, but that's how these people think. That's how they're attacking you, or they're thinking of ways to take you out with that aren't just bullets, aren't just people choking you. Because if they do that and they shoot you, then everybody knows, okay, then this guy was onto something.
That's a good point you just brought up. So poisoning is a very effective method of killing your opponent without swinging a sword, shooting an arrow, or firing a bullet. And poisoning goes all the way back into ancient civilizations. People have been poisoned for the longest of time. And it's been emperors, it's been generals, it's been soldiers, it's been jealous lovers, it's been people from every walk of life. They've been poisoning people or have been poisoned. And so poisoning can occur directly. It can occur directly, or it can happen through something that is a metaphor for poisoning, like planting a computer virus in a system, or putting certain toxic people into a corporation, actually social saboteurs. When you think about poisoning is an old method, and the Chinese have been poisoning people for a long, long time. But I want to go to an event, one of the most oldest events in North American history related to electromagnetic pulses, and that's the Carrington event. And that was a CME, a coronal mass ejection that hit the Earth on September the 1st, 1859. And it caused worldwide electrical blackouts to all of the new electrical systems, but mostly to telegram communication systems. The solar flare caused the aurora borealis type of lights in the northern hemisphere skies.
These are natural occurring events also. Aurora borealis, solar flares, sunspots, whatever you want to call them. Well, they're all different, but they do cut out electronic devices. It fucks with the stratosphere and ionosphere, all that stuff. So, this can happen naturally.
The problem is that the electrical grid is not hardened against these things. Now, the other problem is that none of the American companies that made these parts are making them anymore. And the only manufacturer is in China.
See, that's the biggest thing. Why are we I remember back in the day, the big thing was, remember we had the whole oil thing? We were kids. I guess it happened like in 86, 83, whatever, and that was a big thing where there's like an oil embargo, all this stuff happened. And Jimmy Carter said, we should not be dependent on foreign oil. Well, that's the same thing when it comes to these electronics. We should not be dependent on a foreign power, especially one who's shown hostility towards us. China has proven, and even with this whole coronavirus situation, for some reason we shut down, our economy shut down. China does not give a fuck about its people. Its economy did not shut down, and it flourished under Corona, spread money throughout Europe and Africa, did all kinds of crazy shit. The whole time people are dying, they don't give a fuck. We're arguing over where it came from, they don't give a fuck. They just kept moving. But it's definitely a problem when we've discussed it on past shows that the couplings that they make these wind turbines made in China, this whole grid made in China.
Right, but see, okay, but then you have these cheap toys that are made in China and then laced with lead. So
yes.
This goes back to what I was saying about the slow poisoning. It's an attack from more than one side. it's a metaphorical hear my beef type of attack. But the problem is it's deeper than just those three bodies of government. It's on all levels of society. Even from within your family and your children, they attack your children. So, but hold on. This is the thing about the Carrington event. The Carrington event was in 1859. There was barely any electricity anywhere, maybe about 1% of the country. But here's the problem.
Devices that used it, it was barely affected those
Correct.
Because we weren't dependent on it.
Correct. But here's the thing. So this DME that happened, this coronal mass ejection that wiped out all the electricity, that was fine because everybody else was on a farm or living an agrarian lifestyle. And there were just, small cities that were like starting to form. But this is the deal. If that happens now, there is no backup because you learn with all these major disasters, just like the one that happened last winter in 2021 in Texas, where they got a bunch of snow, artificial snow dumped on them. And then the power grid went out. They have their own power grid. Texas has its own power grid, as everybody learned, ERCOT. And ERCOT is self-regulated. And they were without power and there's people who had like no power for like a week and a half, 2 weeks almost. I mean, these people that are living weeks without power. The problem is they were having issues with water. And it was totally unrelated. And they were cutting off the water prematurely. So they cut off the water supply. And I know people that were there in Texas that are telling me you had people that are taking like big ass scoops out of their local swimming pool of water, boiling it, drinking it, and bathing in it. So these situations illustrate perfectly how there really is no backup plan for what goes on. And if anybody's from Louisiana, New Orleans, they'll tell you that Hurricane Katrina is another example of how there's no backup plan for when the shit hits the fan. So these issues like the power grid going down, these things create a huge mess. The more reliant a civilization is on those resources.
On technology. See, we've always been dependent on resources. That's why if you look at ancient times, people lived by rivers and lakes. You had water, you had transportation, you had crops, yada, yada, yada. So we've always depended on it. But now the whole idea is that it's like playing Jenga. All it takes is the right move and this shit collapses. And don't fall for that bullshit where people are like, well, it'd be better under socialism. Y'all just don't know. The same shit happens under socialism. Y'all just weren't aware of it. So many things behind the Iron Curtain we didn't know about. And so now that shit's over, you find out all kinds of massacres and starvation and shit like that. And people didn't even know. So don't think it's a simple solution. But the thing is, for this not to work, you have to be self-reliant. Self-reliance is the biggest thing we preach. We're talking about on a national level. We're not just talking about on an individual level. We're talking about, hey, why the fuck are we depending on China when they don't like us? Why? And let's talk about poisoning. You remember the whole Tylenol scare? Well, when we were kids, we didn't know, but they had pulled Tylenol. The reason you have the safety caps on Tylenol now, where you can't the non-tampering and shit, all because this dude poisoned his wife. So he poisoned his wife. He poisoned her Tylenol. So he runs to the store and puts Tylenol on shelves in a bunch of stores, and other people get poisoned. And so it looks like his wife just got poisoned by this mass poisoning. But the truth was he was trying to kill her in the first place. So he had some collateral damage. And don't think that when people want to come out, they don't mind the collateral damage. But if they're trying to silence one or two people, collateral damage is acceptable. That's the same. We saw that shit with the DC sniper. He was going after his ex-wife, but he shot a bunch of other people just to make it look good. So yes, don't think they won't hurt your whole family or your whole community just to get one or two people.
Okay, so on August the 14th, 2003, at 4:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, one of the largest power outages in North America took out electrical power in 9 Northeast and Midwest states and 2 Canadian provinces. The cause was finally traced to a software issue in the alarm system of a First Energy power plant control room in Akron, Ohio. A total of 55 million people had no electricity for 7 hours. So we're talking about a good chunk of the East Coast, Northeast Coast, and then you had about 2 or 3 Midwestern states and 2 directly north of there, Canadian provinces. So this problem was based on software. What they don't want to admit to or haven't admitted to was that this was done by hackers. This was done by bad actors belonging to a rogue element somewhere in a foreign country. So even if they're local and they have an ideology that's tied to bad actors from a foreign country, the same applies. These people are enemies of the state, and they intend to take down the civilization that we live and thrive in. But then again, you have to wonder, all right, so, these guys at the power station were able to like get it back up in 7 hours, but who's to say that within 7 hours other things could happen that would allow a foreign enemy or an enemy of the state to do other damage within that 7 hours?
Well, while the electricity is down, how many government plants were affected in that brief time? Or back in California, when they used to have those rolling blackouts, one of the big things was, literally they had old people dying in these old folks' homes that were on, machines. So literally, people would die during these blackouts. You would be so distracted by that type of stuff. What's to stop a serious attack from taking place on banks? Yes, that's some real shit. We're not giving nobody any ideas. We're just letting you know.
No. This should actually happen, and I'm gonna go into that right now because there are secret
this
wars.
Not a plot to a movie. This is not a plot.
No. See, hold on. Pause. Stop for a second. But everybody listening to this needs to understand is that every movie, every action movie, every science fiction movie that you saw and watched as a kid, we are now living it. That we're living all of them at the same time.
There's a greater truth. We love talking about, like, one of our favorite cartoons growing up, Thunder the Barbarian. That happened in like 1994. So much of this shit that we were entertained by in the 80s is actually transpiring right the fuck now. War games, Matthew Broderick, whatever. So many of these different things are happening, and these hackers are actually doing this shit.
See?
So it's always a possibility. You should have what they say, like 3 weeks of water and 4 weeks of food and shit. People aren't saying that shit because they're paranoid. They're saying it because this shit is delicate. It don't take much for that linchpin to come out and this shit to start to collapse. And I'm not saying that this is some anarchy bullshit that we'll never recover from. I'm saying that you need to be self-reliant.
Okay, so this brings me to my next point. And this is an event that happened on April 16, 2013 at 1 a.m. in the morning. The PG&E Metcalf Transmission Substation in Silicon Valley was attacked by a covert commando squad. They cut telephone cables going in and out of the facility, and then snipers positioned themselves around the substation and began firing on transformers at the base in an attempt to cut the power to Silicon Valley. It took 27 days to make repairs. But power was only out for several hours, but this illustrates something that's very important. These were a rogue element that were acting on behalf of a maybe a failed state or an enemy state, but they were acting on behalf of an ideology to shut down Silicon Valley. So what you have are secret wars that are going on that people are completely oblivious to.
Hey, I remember simply when we were a kid, there was a radio station that was local. We only had one or two.
KBWH.
Do you remember why they ended up ending? Some dude threw acid on one of the wires and somebody got so pissed at something they did. I don't know if it was racial. Don't know if it was just personal. But they threw some acid on the tower. The wires going to the tower. They literally threw acid on there. Trust me, it's not that hard to shut some shit down. Now, I think security has gotten better a little bit because of not stuff like 9/11, but not much better. Don't get it twisted. And these things, when they happen, they keep them hush hush. Like, you ever notice about these cop shootings? Cop shootings they really don't show cop shootings. When that thing went down in Dallas, all the stuff that went down in Dallas in the past couple of years, but 4 or 5 years ago, dude made his own armored vehicle. These Dallas cops, some kind of way, killed his son. He goes on a rampage in Dallas, and they don't talk about this shit, but you can Google it. He left bombs in different places. He made his own armored vehicle.
He was a trained military Veteran.
He was a military dude. Basically, he's like any other movie. They killed my son. I'm going after him.
But here's the thing, though. What they don't tell you is he's the first black person in America to be killed by a robot. He was killed by a
Yep.
police or remote controlled robot. That is a little chunk of black history right there that is not great, but is very important that you remember and understand.
Now, here's the other part that we always, all these black people love to throw this shit out there. So I'm throwing the black part out there. If he was white, he probably would have been taken into custody. They did not want this dude to go into custody.
Nope.
Now, is it because they're racist or because he actually has some actual factual?
Because this guy was radioactive. Because if other brothers in jail got even close to this guy, all he was going to do was rub off on them, and it was going to get back into the population, and they did not want that happening. You know what this guy was? There was a new movie that came out about a month ago, and it was a Michael B. Jordan movie called No Remorse. This movie is exactly what you're talking about, except they let him live in the movie.
But see, that's the whole problem, is that the things that make it out, like all these crazy freemen, all these crazy, we stole some. Remember these guys down in Texas were arguing over the land and blocked the land, and they hired their own military, and they did all. How come those motherfuckers make it out alive? Because they're white, but more importantly, they still are about business and business as usual. We just don't agree with how the government did us. But this guy right here, he went on an attack towards the Dallas Police Department, and with all this stuff going on, where old girl shot the guy in his own apartment, all this, and then they were hugging the judge and all this improper stuff in Dallas. He was basically bringing light on that shit years before it even happened. If y'all should, for this guy to do what he did and take the time to do his steps and get his weapons ready, that's somebody right there that knows that they were done wrong, and I'm going to fix it. So.
But he also knew that he might die in the process.
How about this? You remember the movie Heat? Now you remember the two Mexican dudes who imitated Heat,
mm-hmm.
and it's called the L.A. shootout. That's one of the first main shootouts where they were like, "Look, we should have semi-automatic weapons and automatic weapons because this happens." They imitated the movie. They never sued Paramount or whoever the mother company of Heat. They never sued them. They never did all this stuff that they do whenever black people do anything. You remember Ice-T had that group, and they had a song called Cop Killer. You actually had this guy try to sue them because he said his kid listened to it before he shot a cop, shit like that. But the point I'm trying to make is that, yes, when it's minorities, we don't make it out alive, not because these cops are doing their job, because these cops are overseers who are doing their job. They don't want any other minority getting this idea of doing this shit. And so when you see these white folks doing this shit, pushing the government, doing these things, it's no big deal. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe in the Second Amendment, and I do believe black folks need to carry weapons. But don't sit here and think that because you're a good black person that they're going to treat you right. They still will kill you for bullshit. The point we're saying, like, look, there's wars going on every day under our noses. We even talk about one of the big protests during, I guess, 87, 86, was, I guess, shortly after Puerto Rico became one of our territories. There were some Puerto Rican people that did not agree with that. And they went to Congress with guns. A dude ran up there with a .38, started shooting. They took him down. They didn't kill him. But these protests happen every day. We don't understand who we've offended. So when you find out these other countries don't like us, you think it's because we're prosperous. No, they don't like us because our government didn't interfere with them. Like the term banana republic, we talked about that before. Banana republic, the American government felt that bananas were so important to our nutrition because we needed potassium. So they would go down there in South America and these Caribbean countries and disrupt their whole government just to make sure we had bananas. That's why it's called a banana republic. So we would put somebody in like, hey, you going to sell us your bananas? Yeah, well, so that's literally what banana republic means. They were setting up governments just to make sure Americans had enough potassium. Didn't give a fuck about the people that live there. Didn't give a fuck about their traditions, culture, none of that shit. Just so long as that we had enough bananas to keep people up walking right. That's the kind of shit that America does, and then you don't understand why these people hate us. They don't hate us just because we're America, we're the biggest guy on the block. They hate us because, you don't rape their women and fucked up their culture and shit.
Okay, so another thing to consider is the fact that the highway system, the roads that you drive on, are part of the American infrastructure.
Yep.
And we take these things for granted all the time. The only time you think about it is when there is a traffic jam or you see a pothole that's tearing your car up. That's the only time people give any thought to this stuff, not realizing that your tax dollars are paying for these things. But these things are also vulnerable. They're vulnerable to attack. So, for example, on March 30th, 2017, an arsonist set fire to the concrete coating on a bridge that ran through the center of Atlanta, Georgia. Millions of cars and billions of dollars travel up and down Interstate I-85. And the section of the bridge that burned was directly over a concrete manufacturing plant, the mob, maybe, and next to the MARTA subway train yard. The repairs were completed in 43 days and cost $15 million. So here's the deal. This was clearly arson. Somebody had did this to cripple the city. And so it did cause massive, massive traffic backup, congestion, and delays. So whoever did this, they got the desired result that they wanted. So I don't know what was going on at that time, but they were looking to slow something down, impede the flow of money, control or slow things down, or just show that hey, we can bring about this chaos.
It could have been a distraction for something else. Ooh, don't forget that could have just been a distraction.
It's possible. It's completely possible. But at the time,
we're not saying it was. We're just saying that's a possibility.
But I live in the city, so at the time, I was racking my brain to see like what else was going on. What's going on around here that's being covered up? There was nothing that I knew of that I caught wind of that was being covered up. But you could be right. It could have been a huge, massive diversion. I don't know. I didn't see UFOs in the sky before or after. I didn't see, any explosions or any military vehicles coming in and out, of this area in the city. I didn't see any of these things. But it is my perception that this was done intentionally. As a form of chaos and control. And by who, we don't know. I mean, you could easily point fingers and say it was the mob because it was a concrete company directly underneath the interstate right there. But then again, it could be like JFK where the mob was only one portion of it and not only the main bad actor. I mean, they were really just like the wheelman in a fucking robbery. In that situation, but hold on.
You have five people doing shit for one thing,
right?
You don't know who. Yeah, what we're telling you guys is that don't reckon. Sometimes we don't recognize that we're right in the middle of some shit because we're either too close or too far away. It's literally you're right in the middle, so you don't see all the players, or you're so far away you're like, oh, this is minute, and you're not recognizing that this is affecting something miles away, and we see the shit and we dismiss it. Like my brother told you on one of our other podcasts, like all this crazy weird shit happened in a short span of time. You're not recognizing that. All you try to do is get to work. All you try to do is maintain your microcosm, your bubble, and you're not recognizing that this shit is actually part of your bubble. It's just a higher rung or a higher tier. So when this shit's going on, you need to have your spotty sense on. You need to be trying to figure out, okay, shit, is this going to affect me? And that's what's happening. This is why it's so easy for these foreign countries to affect us, Russia, China, because we're so busy with our technology, we're so busy with our pleasure, with these dopamines going off in our brain that we don't see the bigger picture that they're affecting our whole entire existence. That you can't even make your own food anymore. Or when you try to tell people, like, I remember my little cousin was wigging out. He used a hand sanitizer. I'm like, hey man, just eat that carrot out the ground. Like, oh no, hell no. Like, yeah, that's actually how it goes. Washing off is great, but still. It comes from the dirt. You can't make these things cleaner than they already are, and the nutrients come from the dirt. So a little bit of dirt ain't gonna hurt you. But no, I need to do this. It needs to be washed several times. But it needs to be washed because of the pesticides, not because of we are in the country. You know what I'm saying? We eat tomatoes off the line. So they got you convinced that you need to depend on some bullshit. Nah, bro.
So the next issue that comes to mind. It happened recently, and this was a bridge, and it was May the 14th. Yeah, it was May. No, it was May 12th. It was May 12th, and it happened over a bridge. It was actually the I-40 bridge that was damaged on the let me back this up. So it was on May 12th, of this year, 2021, the Hernando de Soto Bridge connecting Arkansas to Memphis, Tennessee, it was damaged. The I-40 bridge had a crack in one of its two support beams, and these beams were discovered by inspectors. Mississippi River tugboat traffic carrying 220 barges were waiting in line for hours. Though harmless to the casual observer, breakdowns like that causes shockwaves in the local economy. And the bridge carries a 6-lane highway road over it. The bridge shutdown caused traffic congestion for hours in the West Memphis and Arkansas areas. The river barge traffic had the river barge traffic had since been diverted to waterways nearby. So here you have possible sabotage. I don't know, but it goes to show how this. Okay, first of all, steel beams don't just fracture like that.
Well, actually, that was a big problem. They do. That was all the thing. You remember Barack's first year in office, some bridge collapsed, and he's like, "Yeah, we're devoting all this money to infrastructure." So literally, a lot of these bridges were in bad repair. They started repair. Apparently, they didn't do shit, or they did very little.
Well, but okay. Here's the thing, though. These are official stories that we're getting.
Yes.
Official stories.
Right.
So here's the thing: you can find a crack and you can aggravate it and make it worse. Or you can completely take these bridges out. And if you want to do damage control, then you will say that the damage to the bridge was on its own accord and wasn't done by somebody. So, but here's the thing, though. This I-40 bridge incident, which they're repairing now, is a construction company out of Omaha called Kiewit that is in charge of the repairs. This bridge is caused all types of problems logistically because those barges that come up the Mississippi River, that has trade and mercantile product on it that's used for a lot of people within that region. So it's affecting the local economy. And like you said, logistics is one of those things that boggles the mind because it's highly complex, but yet on the surface it's very simple. If you cut off this artery, then those organs don't get blood. That easy.
It will die on the vine. Yeah. You will have to amputate.
Yep.
What we're saying, what is the official story is, the bridge was in bad repair because it wasn't taken care of, which is still an insult because they take your fucking tax money so much. Or if somebody was doing some shit and it was successful. Or
you could just go up to this if you are aware of, how chemically you can cause chaos. You just go up there, you dress like a construction worker, you put on a harness and a rope, and you just go down that beam, and with a brush and the chemical that you want and where you want the crack to be, and you just paint it in there, and that just starts to eat at the steel.
Either way, slowly eat away. This could have been done months ago, and we just not got the effect because I'll give you an example. Somebody actually sabotaged my mom's vehicle one time. They threw some Drano on her tire. It didn't eat through the tire right away, but when I'm driving, the tire blew. And you get out, you could actually smell the bleach on it. And I'm like, damn. So the police report. What my brother's telling you is that some things you do don't happen immediately, but it still has a desired effect. And that gives you plenty of time to get away. Saboteurs, this is shit they learned in World War II, World War I. You put a bomb on a bridge, but you set it for 3 days. You don't set it, for 10 seconds. You set it for 3 or 4 days. That saboteur has plenty of time to get away. And this happens, and, you ain't got no clue. So, because, like I said, I'm not saying the media is always up to shit or they full of crap, but that official story is to make you feel better. It's to keep you quiet. It's to stop you from suing. It's to stop you from recognizing that, that there's some other shit going on. But that official story, a lot of times it's bullshit. It's just to maintain the status quo. It's not about protecting you from anything or anybody. It's about keeping you from asking questions and fucking with the government. Like, hey, I pay taxes. You're supposed to be protecting me. Oh, no. So, look, when we talk about these silent wars, we talk about the infrastructure. We're telling you that, it's something that you see every day, but you don't recognize the importance of it. These highways, they can be taken away from you. You do realize they're for military use. We've talked about that in the past, that they can actually shut down the highway where you cannot use it. You can't imagine not being able to go from state to state, but that highway was designed for the military to transport shit.
You see. Okay, people don't tell you that. People don't know that. People don't really think about that.
No, your dad told us that.
That's right. See, and only a military person would tell you, like, listen, these highways, they're great for cars. They're built to be wide enough to land an airplane on them, and tanks, a fucking convoy of tanks to roll down these roads. He said, if they have to, that's what it's for. See, that's the whole thing, is people think that, Roosevelt, like when he, designed the highway system and he backed it, he was just this great, it was this great thing for Americans. No, man. They realized that, okay, if we have to go to war on American soil, then we need to be able to get our shit in mass quickly across the U.S.
Yes.
Quickly. See? And so really, this is another thing you people aren't thinking about. When these airplanes crash, you sometimes hear about airplanes landing on highways. Well, guess what? It was designed to do that. It was designed to be a backup runway for a fucking airplane. Look at 285 in Atlanta. The interstate has like 8 to 9 lanes in some places. Okay? And when it is that big, I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, you could land a 747 on this interstate. No problem. Like wing to wing, full wingspan, a 747 could land on the interstate in Atlanta and not have a problem at all. Of course, it'd have to land in a spot where there ain't no cars, but yeah, once those cars to that airplane coming around, they would fucking move. They like, truck, semis be like, you got it, man. Go for it. It's all you.
Knock yourself out.
But that's the whole thing. This interstate system was designed for this. See, a lot of the things that we use in modern day society came from military technology or military planning. And this is another example of that. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So in this scenario, in worst case scenarios, if the U.S. was fighting anybody on American soil, and this is like a formidable opponent, yeah, they'd be landing like F-14s and F-18s and F-22, F-35s on highways if they have to fucking, grab somebody and take off, or just like, land for safety. They do that shit without a problem. You got all these smaller airports around your local cities and municipalities that can land military jets and planes. Hell, I see Black Hawk helicopters at the smaller airports around here in Atlanta all the time. So yeah, there's I'm not gonna say double-edged sword, but there's a multi-purpose to many of these civic amenities that we have, and we don't really consider how it would be hurt without those things. Because
let's talk about some of the failed games. I remember there's a dam like in Tennessee someplace. I don't want to say the wrong city. And these people had an idea that they got scuba equipment and they put a bomb on the dam. So their idea was to blow the dam up, flood the city, and take their scuba equipment and go through and steal all the money and valuables. Didn't work. But that tells you that people think about attacking our infrastructure all the time when we don't. So this internet shit, that's part of your infrastructure now. Your phone system, part of your infrastructure. Water, electricity, transportation system, which is trains and motherfucking highways. Airports, airlines, busing. These are all part of the infrastructure. These are things that are in place to maintain I don't want to say lifestyle, but to make your life better. But anybody can attack one of these and make your life much more difficult. Crazy shit. We don't, like I said, we don't recognize we all watch cable now, but cable and television, whether it's airwaves or cable, that can be attacked. That somebody can put a message in there, subliminal message. This shit, and for all those people don't realize, this shit has happened. Every plot to every movie has happened at some point in time, damn near.
And is happening and is going to happen. But for example, in 2015, there was a Central Florida water plant that was attacked by hackers, and they weren't doing anything malicious. They were just playing a game, and these games, these little childish ass kids playing these games, are fucking with the livelihood of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. So that's an example of how a waterway system can be affected. When you affect the water supply, you affect the livelihood of a lot of people. But then there's other attacks that people also need to keep in mind. And the solar winds attack is a recent one that happened. And the solar wind attack, the solar wind attack happened December 13th, 2020. And solar winds, it was a cyber attack that infected large corporations like Microsoft and several government agencies. And experts consider the attack one of the most sophisticated and stealthy cyber attacks to date. It was later confirmed that Russia was behind the attacks. So this goes back to what I was saying about derision and how derision will take many forms. And these people who have ideologies that are salty about something that happened 60 years ago are still teaching this to the young people and hiring them to do their deeds for them. Or perhaps it's part of the Fourth Reich as well. So the thing is that with people like George Soros, he was a Nazi youth. And it is highly suspected that he is part of the Fourth Reich. And everything he does is an attempt to destroy American ideology or economy by controlling currency or social movements. Hell, the Black Lives Matter, one of the leaders, she stepped down, and this was last week because she has 4 to 5 several $1 million homes.
How? I think two or three were $1 million. Another ones are like 800,000.
None of them are in black neighborhoods.
Period.
Not a single one. She's not living around any black folks. None of this money that she took was to help anybody black except herself.
Soros gave them $1 billion. Is what we're saying. George Soros gave $1 billion to Black Lives Matter, but ain't no black people being helped. Even recently, we all know the pipeline attack where they shut down the gas and the oil over there in the East Coast. These things happen quite more often than we realize. And of course, like my brother's telling you, it almost always goes back to Russia. So that tells you right there that they're still salty and Putin is still backing them. Even backing these hackers, and even when they question them upon the election the first time, they're like, "Hey, we have some patriots that may have done that, but I had nothing to do with it." He called them patriots. He's saying some of our patriots may have done things like that. That lets you know that he's committing them people. He didn't say, "Hey, these evil guys are doing this. We're sorry." None of that shit. No, patriots. Yeah, be careful about that patriot term. Like I said, this infrastructure thing is important, and you need to be watching. You need to be vigilant. Every time somebody catches somebody coming into this country, I remember this was years ago. Clinton was still in office, and they had some Arabs trying to come in from Canada, and this female border guard stopped them, and I think she did some gangster shit. But you don't hear about that. It's not the fact that they tell you, but they don't want to make it too big because they don't want to give other people ideas. It's still more about the media. They'll tell you that she was courageous, but they don't tell you what these people were trying to do. And we all know about, of course, the World Trade, but I was in Oklahoma City for the Merle City bombing. And that's what you got to understand. Or how about the fact, how many times has the World Trade been blown up? You got to remember, they had 2 or 3 terrorist attacks. And how'd they catch them? The motherfucker came back for the deposit. They had a U-Haul truck. They put it inside the World Trade. They blew it up. It didn't quite work. And this Arab guy, even the FBI agent, he said, "Man, they put me there. We didn't think we had a chance." But the guy came back for his deposit. He said, "Hey, my U-Haul was in that building. It got blown up. I want my deposit back." That's how they arrested the guys. So we're constantly under attack. They're keeping it from us to keep you calm and for you to feel safe, but we're constantly under attack. And our infrastructure is probably the easiest way to get to the American people.
So, the Colonial Pipeline disaster was caused by computer hackers that gained entry to the administrative side of pipeline operations. The hackers gained control over computers by controlling operations of the pipeline. Colonial shut down the pipeline to contain the problem and attempt to fix it. In the end, they wound up paying $4.4 million in ransom.
In what? In Bitcoin.
In Bitcoin. And because Bitcoin is anonymous.
Oh, it's not traceable. I'm just putting it out there. I'm just letting you know. Now all of a sudden you got your boy Elon Musk fucking with this cryptocurrency because he wants it to be traceable. He wants the whole reason we deal in cash. Bitcoin is the closest thing to cash, where you can sell drugs, do a transaction, legitimate or illegitimate, but the government has no finger in it. That's what makes Bitcoin special. That's why all these other people are jumping into the cryptocurrency because they want to be part of it, but they're probably willing to give your information to the government and they'll be able to trace the shit. What the reason it's called crypto in the first place because it's hidden. It's the whole blockchain is encoded. So, I don't like the idea of this shit because that means anybody can control my money. If they're going to lock me out if they wanted to. So you got to be careful about this shit. But it's in style, and that's what this is about. This is about doing business and not getting caught. During legal or illegal business and not getting caught, excuse me.
So there are wars by other means, and every attack is not going to be from a infrastructure attack, but it's something that ends up reaching and affecting the infrastructure later on. And so there's a good book out there y'all should check out. It's called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And it's a book written by John Perkins. Well, John Perkins, he is a former chief economist at a major consulting firm, and he advised the World Bank, the United Nations, and several Fortune 500 companies. This guy talks about how he would go into countries in Central America and South America, and at the behest of intelligence agencies, he would find ways to cause their economy to collapse. So this is coming from a person who actually did this stuff. And whether you want to say it's truth or maybe it's something that's a psyop. I don't think so. I don't think this is a psyop at all. I mean, I think this is actually a guy who actually walked the walk and helped destroy a couple of small countries. But it goes to show that how control over countries can be gained and can be lost through destroying their banks and their logistic systems, and then eventually their infrastructure. Because he talks about in the book there's different ways to go about shutting down a country. So then when you think about this and you think about the things that are happening to the United States, it's something that you consider, all right, it's not happening all at one time. But it's a time release aspirin, and these are one thing after the other, after the other, after the other, that's leading to a slow collapse. And so the reason why we talk about these things, the reason why we bring these things up on the show is because these are things to have in your immediate awareness. Because when you have this in your conscious, you're making more informed decisions about how to deal with this, about how to approach your purchases for the year. And I didn't say for the week or the month when you got your paycheck, for the year, because you need to start thinking about things far in advance. Okay, you need to start having long planning, because it's with this long planning is how you create a sustainable and affordable way to survive chaos and thrive during chaos. Because you have to ask yourself, all right, well, what can I do to protect myself against this? Well, you have to have potable water and you have to have food that you can store for at least 6 months to a year at a time. And the reason why you need to do this, you need to have at least 2 months to 3 months of food, is because when these infrastructures go down, you need to have a way to eat. All right. You need to have water to drink and a way to bathe so that you can think and function to move to that next step of your plan, and that you're not being reactive. That's the whole thing. You're not being reactive, but proactive. But here's another thing. You also need to have a generator. You need to have a backup generator, because when power goes out, you are at the behest of a power company. And if it's Russia or China or some rogue element that is shutting down the power, okay, fine. I'm going to let everybody else involved in those major power decisions work on that, while on a micro level, I work on my family, and we just fall right back onto our contingency plan, and we're still eating, We can still use the phone short term. We can still use our computers. We can even entertain ourselves by watching DVDs and Blu-rays and VHS if we need to. You know what I'm saying? But we still have that option because, see, what we're talking about now here at the end of this episode is quality of life. And quality of life is what you work towards, but it's how you extend it onto a tier that is outside the control of the system that gave it to you.
Look, white folks, let me explain this to you. What's being done to you is what you did to black folks. We're dependent on an outside force that doesn't truly care about us. That's how when you allow China, Russia, and these other places to have influence, if you will, on your day-to-day stuff, whether it's gas, electricity, yada, yada, yada. You can't trust their decision making will be in your best interest. They can just say, like, you know what, we got plenty of electricity, but we're only going to use it in this area, or we're only going to send the water to this area because we like these people. Well, that's the problem. And so black folks, we know what it's like to live in that situation. It's hard to ever gain footing. It's hard to ever move forward, have any real advancement because you're steady spinning your wheels just trying to survive. You're just trying to stay alive. Well, that's what we're saying by having enough food, having enough water. While all this shit's being done, we can make a good decision. Like, you know what? Hey, we need to move over here, or we need to go. Let's go actually into the interior. Where they got fresh water, and we'll let them hash it out. We don't need to be dependent on them, or we can relocate, or we can. But if you don't have those means, you're beholden to whoever's in charge, and you got to kiss their ass. Or you know what? They say that we only can use 12 hours of electricity. I'll do what they say. That kind of thing. How many of these people down there in Texas, when they had that shit going on, said, hey, we had these brand new Ford trucks that had a generator in it. We use that generator to power the whole house. That kind of thing. Now, again, you need a generator. My brother's telling you, have a generator so when the shit hits the fan, you're not dependent on it. You're not just stuck, with whatever they tell you. So you need these different things. You need options. You talk about choosing. You want to choose now before you need to. You don't buy the condom after she's pregnant, do you? You buy it before. Don't make these mistakes, and then all of a sudden that you're beholden to the wrong people.
So, okay, we just lived through a pandemic. And in this pandemic, people had to experience what it was like to live in a socialist country for a minute, because America experienced socialism and is experiencing socialism right now. It doesn't realize it, though, because now they're offering more stimulus checks. There's another $1.8 trillion of stimulus checks about to go out. And they're about to send out these checks to everybody again. And it's so funny. It's right around the first summer holiday. They're sending these checks out. So I was like, oh, okay. So they sent them out around Christmas time. They sent them out again around Valentine's Day. And now they send them out again around summertime. And I'm like, all right. So they're propping up the economy again after it was completely wrecked by a transhumanist, by a eugenicist plan to control and document everybody. And so here we are in war by other means, where they didn't attack the infrastructure, but they attacked everybody socially, mentally, psychologically, and financially. You see what happened there? So you were just stuffed into your little cubby hole. You were told to stay there, and they would bring you, the money you need so you can go out and scurry about and fight over toilet paper and get, the food afterwards. And so here we are again, getting another stimulus check, and everybody's going to go out and they're going to spend this, going to, stimulate the economy. And it did. It worked. It's stimulating the economy. But the problem in that is the backlash is nobody wants to go to work anymore. Nobody wants to go work some bullshit job and for pay that is not on par with their skill set or the demands that are being foisted upon them. And so what we got is what they wanted. They wanted a society that was so dependent on a greater power to provide everything they want: safety, security, and money. And the problem with that, the problem with that is it's a problem that keeps growing. And so then it starts to affect the psychology of everybody in the family, in the house. So then the kids sort of think it's okay to like their mom is home all the time. No, that's not okay. Mom and dad need to be at work. They need to be out there getting that bread so that they can provide a better life, but teaching you how to be less dependent on the government. Because these kids, these generation zero, which is like after Z, generation zero or negative, they are seeing that it's okay. I don't need to get a job. No, man, it's that this whole mentality has to be curtailed so you don't create a problem, which I really think enemies of the state want to create because it makes a softer target. Because these are people who are easier to govern. These people are
Period.
so easy to govern.
Yes. Well, look, the government becomes your god. You know, why do you think in these socialist communist countries they don't like religion? It's because the government's your god. We provide everything. You know, you'd be like, well, God provided this. No. We provided it. And that's what happens. You become beholden. The two stories that keep coming out this whole coronavirus thing. How many of these stories you see? I took my $1,400 stimulus check and I created a business. That's the story that you see in the black community. You know, but also other story you see in the black community is that, hey, I ain't going to work because I'm getting 300 extra. I'm getting more money off.
But that money gonna run out. What you gonna do when that money run out? Nothing. You're gonna be exactly where you were before you got that check.
Yeah, the truth is they're not making more money being off. They're making enough money to live on. These are two different conversations.
Dude, I know motherfuckers that's getting like $580, almost $600 a week.
Shit, I make that in 2 days. You know that's the whole thing. But a lot of these people, it's enough for them. So what they're saying is this is enough. This is enough. I got food stamps. I got a little bit of money. I can buy a big screen. I'm cool. The problem with being cool is that y'all could be starting your own business. You should take that money and invest it. We don't believe in investing money. I know people right now that they got over $20,000 in stimulus money because they got kids. And they kept getting hit, and they didn't spend none of their money. So there's actually people saving. I'm like, go start a business. No. People don't understand how to invest. So here's what you need to understand. In times of trouble, in recession, in whatever the hell you want to call this thing, what do rich people do? They buy. They buy investments. They buy equipment. They buy stocks. They buy
real estate.
They buy everything. They buy because they know when this shit is over, this shit, what they have is going to shoot up in value. I just bought a house. I'm hoping in the next year my house will go up $30,000. That sounds terrible, and most that never happened. In this market and economy, it will. And all they're doing is driving the prices up. So you need to be buying right now. You need to be buying stock. Me and my brother on the phone right now, we've been looking at penny stocks. Jump in that penny stock stuff. Anything less than $1 is considered penny stock.
Penny stocks is basically blockchain currency before blockchain currency.
But they've always been there though. See, the whole idea that this is something new. No, they have stock that costs less than $1, and you jump on board. Some of the stuff I bought for 40-something cents is now $1.06. So I'm doubling, tripling my money. It doesn't sound like much to you. It's a lot because most stocks don't behave that way. And I don't have enough. I don't have enough money to jump into Bitcoin now. I don't have enough money to buy Microsoft now. I don't have enough money to buy Apple now.
But you don't need to. You can buy these other ones that are on the rise.
Before
See, look,
big.
all these ones that are like super huge now, we missed the boat. That's fine.
Say it.
That shit is not for you. You missed the boat, okay? Yeah, and so because of that, don't even worry about it. Just be looking for the next one to put your money on. As a matter of fact, speculate. Consider like, okay, this might be a good one. But here's the thing. Take a little bit of that money and put it on there. All right. And when I say a little bit, this is money that is not going to hurt you if you invest. Don't invest.
$20.
Exactly.
Started.
Exactly. But don't invest with money. Scared money don't make money. That's an old saying, and it's true. And you cannot invest with money that is going to hurt you if you lose it. Straight up.
Look, the whole thing is what we're saying is that this market is down everywhere. It's all the way down. The lowest. So you need to jump in. Right now, I just started doing my 401k. I've been in my company 23 years. I just started doing a 401k. They're like, you're crazy. Nope. The market's completely down. It has no place to go. What up? I need to throw this money in here. I only plan on being here another 10, 15 years. So when I walk out with a couple hundred extra grand because the market's down. What rich people do is poor people when
buy low, sell high.
That's the rule. But when the market's down, poor people are trying to survive. This is what I meant by trying to survive. So when the infrastructure's down, you have to suck this Chinese dick just to get water, and it might not be water they're giving you. So you have to do that shit. You understand? But when you had a plan, when you put water and stuff away when you could, so when the shit gets, you know what? Fuck you. I'm doing what's best for our family. We're moving. We're going to move to Canada. Fuck that shit. We're going to move to Mexico. You know, we'll load up the truck and get the fuck out of here. Or we'll go to our family land in the middle of Arkansas. And we can sit here and wait it out while we make decisions because we got plenty of food out there. So that's what they don't want to talk about. And whenever you hear the doomsday preppers, it's crazy old white people and the whole family there, they look all inbred. They do that shit on purpose. That's to deter you. Yeah, they have shows about it, but they want to deter you from doing this shit. So they make it like, see, they're racist. See, this is not for you, black man. This is not for you, Native person. This is not for you, Aboriginal. They're doing that on purpose because they don't want you to get any ideas. They want you to be beholden on the government. No. So right now, you need to be investing. Look at all you got to do is Google penny stocks. See which ones are performing. You got some stuff so cheap. You got stuff that's less than a penny, literally. Snatch it up right now. Go ahead, join Ameritrade. What's the other one? TD Ameritrade, Scottrade. There's 3 or 4. Just put some money in there and start doing your research because right now, everybody's making money on you, and you're just trying to survive. Part of surviving is expecting to make it through this difficult situation and make it to the other side, expecting that money to be there, that food to be there, the house to be there. So, yeah, you got to do that shit, y'all, because if they attack your infrastructure, what are you going to do? Hey, I got to walk to work, so be it. Got to walk to work. Well, not anymore. I'm 17 miles away. But the bottom line is that when they attack the infrastructure, you have to make do with what you got, and that's what we're not doing. We're not making do.
So in this episode, we covered geomagnetic disturbances, industrial sabotage, war by other means, hardening the grid, the highway systems. These issues, these things will happen. They will continue to happen. And
it's been happening.
But see, the government will take measures to prevent these things from happening. But at the same time, you also have false flags that are working to take your guns away. And you have all these psyops that are still going on. And so in these scenarios, again, you have to anticipate some of these situations that could repeat themselves. And so in doing so, you want to be very sharp in your decision making and realize that I have to put away a kit, okay? Put away a kit that allows you to save your family from hardship. And I'm not talking about a bag. I'm talking about more than a bag. I'm talking about a room that has stuff in it that's going to keep y'all alive for months and months at a time. Because what that room is a force field. And that force field protects your family from the outside world. It protects your kids from losing their teeth, from not brushing them because they don't have any water. It protects, your woman from having like all types of like female issues because she's not able to, deal with her monthly cycle or to clean out her nether regions. See, this is another thing. And a big part of these kits that people need to have are feminine products. Nobody ever talks about that. Think about how nasty them pussies was back in the day in some of these countries when, people was just living like on this rough ass living. You know what I'm saying? So
they have vinegar and water.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. In that kit, you got to have vinegar and water. You got to have some douchebags. You know what I'm saying? Disposable will probably be the best. You got to have all these feminine products, tampons. You got to have these things because, listen, imagine if the grid in like society went down for 6 months and you had a room full of supplies, but then you had tampons and Massengill that you could like barter with people. Do you realize how powerful you would be? Yo, you become the new dope man. Forget about cocaine and chocolate and sugar. If you have feminine products, you will have people trying to knock down the door to get to your supply. Of course, you're not going to show your hand and like show them where your shit is and how much your shit is. But by having these things, you have stuff to trade. In Germany during World War II, the U.S. soldiers had German girls giving them blowjobs for a chocolate bar. Yeah. Yes, that's it. This went down a lot because these people over there in that war zone were so deprived of the most basic things that when these soldiers showed up with eggs, like here, let's fry some eggs. These people were overjoyed to drink fresh coffee. You see, so when the infrastructure is attacked, then you have to then have your supplies ready. And all this episode is about is showing you the different ways that the infrastructure has been attacked and will be attacked. But it's not your job to go out and fight all those people. No, that's the government and the military and the intelligence agencies. It's your job to hold it down for your family. And all we're doing here at the end of it is showing you what you can do to protect your family from outside attacks. So, another thing to keep in mind is if you have enough money, get yourself a vehicle that is older than 1986 and it has an analog fuel injection and ignition. So that way, if an EMP blast does go off, you have a motorcycle or you have some off-road vehicle that can go anywhere over any terrain, and you have a little bit of gasoline to get you there. These are all things to consider in these scenarios. But again, surviving.
Mine's a 77 Mercedes. I still got it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, well, as long as all the roads ain't blocked, I'm gonna be on a fucking dirt bike, or I'm gonna be on a motherfucking, I'm gonna be on a fucking electrical powered drone that can fly, man. So I'm gonna be in a fucking Skyhawk. I had that G.I. Joe Skyhawk. But yeah, so that's basically all we're saying here is just be more careful with how you're investing your money here in the next couple months, the next year, because listen, there's more shit coming. There's more tragedy and pandemics and more hard times coming. They're going to come. They will. I mean, listen, there's an old Chinese proverb.
How easy it was to control us. They saw that it worked.
There's an old Chinese saying that it goes, may you be cursed to live in interesting times. Well, them motherfuckers keep cursing us with a lot of interesting shit. So, in that, I'm going to close by saying, be wise. Don't compromise, and be aware of how the infrastructure is being attacked and plan accordingly so you and your family will continue to prosper and be well. We out. Peace.
Out back.